Good morning, and thank you all again for joining us for today's Reading 360 and Tennessee Serves webinar. My name is Scott Meltzer. I serve as the Director of Engagement here at the Tennessee Department of Education. I'm the liaison between the Department of Education and education stakeholders across the state, including our superintendents, teachers, principals, philanthropists, nonprofits, businesses, and other stakeholders across Tennessee. And on behalf of Volunteer Tennessee, the Tennessee Department of Education, and the First Lady's Office, we really appreciate you all investing the time to learn more about Reading 360, Tennessee Serves, as well as the Literacy Success Act. I'm going to kick us off this morning before turning it over to some of my friends from the Department of Education, the First Lady, Maria Lee, as well as our friends at Volunteer Tennessee. Just a couple of housekeeping items. Please stay on mute just to avoid any potential background noise or echo during the webinar today. And during the Q&A portion, please utilize the chat feature for any questions that we could answer about Reading 360. The deck that you'll see today, as well as all the links that we reference through it, will be sent out after today's webinar by myself. Today, we're really excited to be giving you all an overview, but want to be able to equip you with information to take a deeper dive into Reading 360, learn more about the Literacy Success Act, and some of the next steps will follow at the end. First, I wanted just to touch on, at the Tennessee Department of Education, our strategic plan, Best for All, is laser focused on setting all Tennessee students on a path to success. You'll see all of these strategic initiatives and programs of the Department of Education are aligned in one of our 3 strategic priority areas. First, in academics, ensuring all Tennessee students have access to a high-quality education, no matter what corner of the state of Tennessee they live in. 2, student readiness, where we focus on both the academic and non-academic needs of all of our students in their career pathways. This includes areas such as career and technology education, mental health support, civics education, and other areas. And then our 3rd strategic priority area of educators is focused on both the recruitment, retention, as well as the leadership development of all Tennessee educators. Wanted to touch on the roles of the Tennessee Department of Education. Every Department of Education in the country has different purview based on that state's respective laws, and so we always wanted to share with audiences what our role is specifically as the state agency here in Tennessee. The Department of Education really has 4 main focus areas. First is the implementation of all federal and state education laws. This also includes the Tennessee State Board of Education, which is the policy-making body of Tennessee, and they pass policies on a range of different K-12 topics based on the state laws passed by the legislature and signed by the governor. And this includes some areas such as instructional programs and educators. In Tennessee, we are a locally controlled public education state, and so a majority of the decisions in public education are focused on local control made by the Board of Education and the superintendent as the decision makers for their local districts in the best interests of their students, faculty, and staff. The Tennessee Department of Education is focused on school district implementation supports and one-on-one technical assistance for the implementation of laws, as well as key strategic priority areas such as Reading 360. 3rd, educational resources, which Reading 360 falls into, that have a statewide implication across all of our 147 school districts as optional resources. And then lastly, monitoring and compliance based on state and federal law. And so wanted just to set the stage for the role of the Department of Education, particularly with our conversation today around Reading 360 and setting up all Tennessee students for reading success. Just real quick, our agenda today will be touching on Reading 360, the Literacy Success Act, as well as the Tennessee Serve Network that we are really excited is online, and as well as then turning the floor open to you all for any questions and answers that we can provide at this time. Now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Lisa Coons, who serves as the Chief Academic Officer here at the Tennessee Department of Education. And she is going to give us an overview of the Reading 360 plan. And again, just as a quick reminder, this slide deck will be shared at the end of the presentation, as well as the links and more information that Dr. Coons references. Dr. Coons, I'm going to ask you to hop off mute, and I will turn the floor over to you.
Thanks, Scott. You know, this is my favorite thing to talk about. Reading 360 is a passion of ours at the department, and very excited to share more about Reading 360 with y'all today. It is a $100 million investment of one-time federal funding to provide optional grants, tools, and resources to more than Tennessee students to develop strong reading skills by supporting districts, teachers, and families. I think one of the unique pieces about Reading 360 that is so exciting is that it doesn't just involve our teachers and our districts. It really brings everyone together in the fold and talking about reading and talking about the importance of reading for our children. So very blessed and thankful to be a part of the Reading 360 work, and really excited about the intentional focus of all stakeholders in our Reading 360 work. So one of the things that we know in Tennessee is we've been working really hard on reading, and we've been working hard on reading for a long period of time. But one of our focus points, as you can see, it is not getting where we need to go. So one of our focus points is that we really need to involve more people than just our children's teachers and our districts in this work, because they are also working as hard as they can. And we know it takes a village, and we want to make sure that we're involving all stakeholders to focus on literacy, to wrap around our children, to make sure our families are partners, that our communities provide the supports and resources, and really have the opportunity to engage on this very important issue. So our goal is to make sure that red and green line start going up, and that there is sustainable impact, not only with our younger children and their first pass at literacy proficiency, but that's sustainable as our children get older and have more complex learning opportunities that are based in reading. So one of the cornerstones of Reading 360 is this focus on phonics. What research is telling us, and what we know based on evidence, is that our children's most important starting points for literacy and learning to read is phonological awareness. And that's a fancy word for hearing sounds. Do I hear sounds when people speak, when people talk, when people read? And do I hear how sounds change as we play with different words, such as rhyming or initial sounds in words? So can I actually hear those sounds? Do I actually see the patterns in the sounds in front of me? Then as children build that knowledge on sounds, they move towards how do sounds and letters come together to create words? And then how do I see those sounds and letter patterns, excuse me, to create those words? And then how do I see the words in print? And then how do I spell those? How do I create those patterns in actual print? So the first part is those sounds, and then how do we move into the print components of sounds and letters? And then how do I build that ability to read? How do I take those sounds and letters and that code into the ability to have a successful accuracy rate, and I can read with expression, which means I really understand what I'm reading. So this approach to literacy really starts with that sounds first, and you'll see that in that graphic. This emphasis on how do we hear sounds, and how do we build sounds into letters, into words, and into reading. And then Scott, could you flip us to the next slide, please?
I think we may have a delay. Let me try it again. Sorry about that.
No problem. Thanks so much. So Reading 360 not only focuses on a wide array of audiences and community folks and teachers and educators to support this approach to literacy, it has many different avenues to focus on Reading 360, many different menu options for districts to engage in, for our community members to engage in. One of the things Scott said at the beginning is that we do have local control of our schools, and it's important for our local schools to operate within their local context and determine exactly what kinds of things in their local context make sense for their schools in supporting literacy. So there are a lot of different options, a lot of different components in the work. We are launching and launched on Monday an expansive training series for our teachers that starts with 5 days of asynchronous training, then moves into 5 days of in-person training. We have over 11,750 teachers being trained this summer to support that sounds first approach, give them the opportunity to learn that theory, apply that theory to their classroom. And then we have over 95 districts participating in a coaching initiative that supports those teachers once they get back to the classroom. We have 48 teachers who are engaged in 48 districts included in an implementation network that really thinks about literacy, thinks about materials, thinks about the needs of the regional district, and really supporting the district and making deep impact in their reading instruction. Very proud of our online tool called Best for All Central. This provides a wealth of resources, including videos, resources for classrooms, resources for families, guidance documents. That training series is hosted on the online literacy tool and really provides a one-stop shop for everything that all audiences could use and need around literacy. We are launching in the fall the Connected Literacy Opportunity. This provides very specific foundational skills, that sounds first approach, tutoring for students all across Tennessee, over 13,000, actually 13,721 students, the opportunity to have tutoring directly on those foundational skills, directly on those sounds, making sure our students are hearing those sounds and developing that fluency. So that connected literacy tutoring specifically is on that foundational skills that we just talked about. We are working with our education prep providers and our leader prep providers to create innovative models to make sure that our new teachers and our new leaders are being trained in that literacy approach, making sure that they're grounded and they understand the importance of that theory. Our regional offices called CORE support in each of the 8 regions and really partner with our districts to think about this approach. Then we are working with teachers, leaders, our ed prep providers, and a statewide council to really look at literacy, the assessment of literacy, how we're using that, how we're talking to our families about where our students are, and making sure that that whole system comes together and wraps around that student's needs, but also really thinks about all of the people involved and make sure our parents come to that literacy assessment and understanding where students are on a regular basis in a partnership. And then Scott's going to talk a little bit about this, but we have a public awareness campaign for community members, for everyone to engage and wrap around the importance of literacy and moving that needle for all of our children. So as we talked about, teachers are that cornerstone, and Dolly Parton says reading inspires us to dream. Well, we know our teachers and their ability to teach reading inspire our children to read and have those dreams. So one of the key components that we talked about a little bit earlier is this early literacy training and coaching for our teachers. And we have 2 weeks of opt-in training. We are super excited that so many of our districts and so many of our teachers have opted in and launched into this training. The week 1 module is an online module. It's an asynchronous module that really talks about the theory of reading. We've had over 6,000 teachers engage in that work and over 4,000 teachers complete the week 1 module successfully and are moving into that face-to-face training for educators. And then over the course of the summer, of course, we'll have 11,750 teachers in that face-to-face in-person training. Once those teachers leave that training, they receive kits. And in those kits, they receive resources, including Decodables, which we'll talk about, to go back to their classroom and support their teachers. Teachers also are being paid for this training. So once they complete both of those 2 weeks, they receive $1,000 of pre-tax dollars for their work, and they are eligible for professional development credit. So we're very excited to not only offer this for our teachers, be able to give them resources to go back to their classroom, and pay them for the work that they're doing over the summer to really spin up their understanding of literacy. And then second, we need to focus on our districts and how we support those districts to make sure that they can think about today, but also tomorrow, and inspiring that system approach within their districts that really focuses on foundational skills, on literacy in that approach. So one of the components of our district is this implementation network. So we do have opt-in K-12 implementation networks that really focus on the regions and the region support of that. Those networks are focused on district and school leaders. So there's components that really bring district leaders together. And then there's components that really bring our principals and help our principals think about literacy. We also are having early literacy networks that support that extension of that training and think about how our districts can really dive into those foundational skills. And then, of course, our centers of regional excellence across the state, our 8 regional offices, really dig in and support that partnership work to make sure our districts have every opportunity to think about K-12, think about those foundational skills, and think about that regional support. And we talked a lot about CORE, but they provide that partnership and that implementation support and really help our district leaders be able to think about their own context. And then finally, we talked about this a little bit, but it's important for us to know where our kiddos are. Where are they progressing in hearing sounds? Where are they progressing in putting those sounds together? Where are they progressing with their fluency? How are they spelling those words? And are there any components of that they're getting stuck on? So the assessment of literacy is a free resource that we will be providing to districts, to teachers, and then a support system for families to really understand that so everyone can come together, understand that data, and be able to support those students and put those wraparound supports, whether it's that connected literacy tutoring or interventions in the classroom, to help our children stay on track. Really excited that both of those resources for teachers and for districts are at no cost. Our districts have the opportunity to opt into those things free of charge. We're able to provide resources and payment for teachers through those federal grants, but also all of those resources, including that assessment system for our districts at no cost. And most importantly, our families. We know that if we fill our house with stacks of books in all nooks and crannies, we can be like Dr. Seuss. But we also have to support our kiddos in learning to read like Dr. Seuss. And it's important for our families to be those partners in that work. So we're going to flip to the next slide and talk about our at-home decodable books. This is one of the favorite things that we are doing right now. Our families are ordering these decodable books. As you can see, the orange, blue, and green colors, those are for kindergarten, first, and second graders. Any family in the state of Tennessee can order a set of 7 books, and there are 3 to 5 stories in each books. These stories are called decodables for a reason. They focus on those sounds. They really build those abilities for sounds, and they help families engage in that sounds practice. And it's not in a highly technical teacherese kind of language. It allows families to read, to have that reading time with their kiddos, but also hear those sounds, emphasize those sounds, and practice those sounds. So when students do go to the classroom, they are ready to hear sounds and they are prepared. So it brings families in as partners at no cost. Our families can order decodables off of the website or off of the QR code. We have had an immense response to that. We've had over 41,000 orders as of last night for families to receive those decodables. So we are really excited to have that spread across the state. And last but not least, and most importantly, our communities are integral partners for this work. It is essential for our communities to wrap around our families and our schools and our teachers to make sure we have a cohesive vision across the state of Tennessee, and every stakeholder has the opportunity to plug in and help our kiddos learn to read and realize their dreams. So I'm going to turn it over to Scott so we can talk about how our communities can really plug in.
Thanks, Dr. Coons. We, as you can tell from us so far, we are just elated about all of the components of Reading 360 and being able to best support our families, our school districts, and our teachers. Specifically on the community partnerships component, as Dr. Coon mentioned, we are putting together right now a public campaign called Starting with Sounds to help parents and students get excited about reading at home. This will include musicians from across Tennessee and beyond who will be reading a children's book, as well as then singing a song to emphasize that that phonics space approach to Reading 360 and literacy in the state of Tennessee. All of these videos will be aired on all 6 PBS stations across Tennessee. The Department of Education has a incredible partnership with all 6 PBS stations that kicked off during the pandemic to ensure that academic enrichment was still able to be in a student's home, as well as being able particularly reach our students that do not have cell phone service or broadband internet access at that time. And we are very much looking forward to working with PBS on the rollout of Reading 360 and the Starting with Sounds campaign. The other areas for collaboration with community partners in particular includes volunteer programs. We really want to be able to ensure, particularly with the recent launch with Tennessee Serves that you'll learn about next, that every single Tennessean, no matter where they live, urban, rural, suburban communities across the state, are able to learn about how each of them can measurably impact the reading success of a student in their local community and easily be able to serve as a community reading tutor in their community. And so we will be sharing today more about Tennessee Serves, as well as how it fits into the overall statewide approach to reading tutoring. And the other area is partnerships for strong research. And so the Tennessee Department of Education is going to be continuing to look at what are really strong research partnerships to ensure that we are providing the right support to the right child at the right time to set them up for success in literacy. And again, this today was wanted to give you all a overview of the components of Reading 360. This website that will be shared afterwards, and it's located on the Tennessee Department of Education's website under top links on the far left-hand side. If you're ever when you're on our main website page. We'll take you to the main site where you can really drill down deeper into each of the components of Reading 360. You'll be able to learn about the implementation networks that Dr. Coons looked at, so you can see if your local school district is in one of those networks and be able to connect with your local school district and be able to stay in touch with us. Please sign up for the Reading 360 e-newsletter to stay connected with our major announcements, as well as other partnership opportunities moving forward. Next, wanted to touch on special session that occurred this past January. So in January, Tennessee's legislature convened and passed 4 historic pieces of public education legislation. One of the links that we'll share with you all after today's webinar will take you to our special session page that is also located under top links on the far left side of our website. And you'll be able to look at one-pagers, FAQs that are specific for community organizations, for teachers or school districts. We've even put together very brief videos to explain each one of these laws. But this has become really the clearinghouse for the implementation on these 4 pieces of legislation from the special session. Today, we wanted to specifically focus on the Literacy Success Act because of the topic and also Reading 360's components. So Literacy Success Act ensures that all of our school districts and public charter schools are designing and submitting a foundational literacy skills plan that is a phonics-based approach in order to develop strong readers across Tennessee. Those foundational literacy skills plans include really 6 sections. 1, the amount of time devoted to foundational literacy skills instruction. 2, the adopted foundational literacy skills material that school district is using. 3, the universal reading screener that was selected, as Dr. Coons had mentioned. Specifically, the interventions and supports that are available to students. A parent notification plan, and lastly, the professional development plan that's focused on foundational skills for K-5 teachers. Those plans are being submitted right now by our school districts, and they are required to be approved by the Department of Education by June 1st. And then within 10 business days of approval, you will see that your local school district will have posted on their website their foundational literacy skills plans, as well as we will also publicly share those plans. I have learned from community partners so far across the state that the Literacy Success Act and Reading 360 has really created a beautiful opportunity for partners and school districts to come together, co-design plans, and ensure that there is alignment between how students are reading in school, reading in classrooms, and before and after school are in alignment, and also be able to even extend existing partnerships to serve more students. The other components of the Literacy Success Act include the reading screener that was mentioned, and this includes both dyslexia screening and RTI. As well as an educator preparation programs will be provided training on foundational literacy skills. And lastly, it requires our kindergarten through third grade teaching candidates to pass a reading instruction assessment. And so again, there'll be, after today's webinar, shared more information on the Literacy Success Act, as well as the other laws that I would encourage you all to learn about in their implementation, as we focus on student learning loss as well as student acceleration in light of the pandemic. Now, I'm really excited to turn over the floor to First Lady Maria Lee to share with us her passion for Tennessee Serves and volunteerism as we get as many Tennesseans as we can fired up to serve as a community reading tutor in their local community. First Lady Maria Lee, I will turn it over to you.
Hey, thanks so much. Really appreciate being with you all. I am Maria Lee, and I'm glad just to have this opportunity to jump on the webinar and say hello and just give you a little bit of information about my initiative, which is Tennessee Serves. I have a heart for serving. It was instilled in me from a young age from my parents. And so when Bill got into office, I kind of was mulling over what would I do, what would my initiative be, and I just thought about serving and doing and helping others, and I felt like that was the best way I could use my time while we have our years here in office. So 2 years ago, my office and I launched Tennessee Serves, and it's basically a three-part initiative, which is one, to be out serving by example, two, to highlight and partner with nonprofits who are serving and doing great work all across our state, and three, to act like a mobilization mechanism to engage and encourage Tennesseans across the state to get involved, volunteer with nonprofits in their area, and make a difference in their communities. I do think that Tennesseans in general have a heart of service at their core, and that volunteer spirit, I think, just inherently is in each one of us. And so at the heart of that, even in the center of that, is our nonprofits. And they are the ones that make the biggest impact, I think, in our communities, far more than even government programs can. And so with that, I'm so grateful for all the literacy nonprofits who are on the webinar today, and for all that you do on a daily basis to support and sustain kids in becoming strong readers and proficient in literacy. The impact that you have and that you make really does last a lifetime in these kids, and will therefore make a difference in communities as these kids grow older and become leaders in communities around the state. As a third and fourth grade teacher, former third and fourth grade teacher, I know the importance of literacy and strong reading proficiency by the end of third grade. It not only just helps for reading, but it helps across all the subject areas and builds stronger students academically. Not to mention all the everyday life that you need to have the ability to read and understand what you're reading and directions if you're playing a game or something. But the success that kids have later in life really can go back and be pinpointed greatly to how well they read in third grade. So I just wanted to commend you all. Thank you all for what you do for students across the state through your the literacy nonprofits that you all are involved with. And I look forward to how Tennessee Serves Network can help you and serve you in recruiting volunteers to jump on board with you to become mentors to foster and promote strong readers across our state. And Shannon Duke from Volunteer Tennessee is going to share a little bit more about the Tennessee Serves Network and how it can serve you. Thank you all so much for being on here, and thanks for just giving me a second to say hello and check in and encourage you in what you're doing. We greatly appreciate it. Our state will be better for it. Thank you all.
Okay, hello, everybody, and thank you, First Lady Lee, for that introduction. Again, I am Shannon Duke, and I'm the Volunteerism and Training Manager for Volunteer Tennessee, and I'm just happy to be on the webinar today. Thank you to Scott and his team at the Department of Education. We're just so honored to be partnering with another state agency in the First Lady's office. So at Volunteer Tennessee, I'm responsible for overseeing the Tennessee Serves Network, and it is Volunteer Tennessee's newest initiative that includes the launch of our statewide volunteer portal known as the Tennessee Serves Network portal. So our executive director, Jim Snell, is also on the call, and so I hope he will chime in case I forget anything, but you can move on to the next slide. So just to give you a little bit of background about Volunteer Tennessee, we are the Governor's Commission on Volunteerism and Service, and our commission was established in 1994, and our mission is simple. Is that we want to encourage volunteerism and community service across the state of Tennessee. We are governed by 25 board members from diverse backgrounds and different sectors that are really dedicated to our mission, and also our staff. And what I think is great too about Volunteer Tennessee and our state plan and our current state plan, one of our goals, our board's goals, is to help with increase the number of third grade students reading at grade level. So we're so excited to hear about Reading 360 and be a part of the solution. Next slide, thank you. Volunteer Tennessee, in addition to the Tennessee Serves Network, we have a number of programs and events that we utilize to focus on our mission and move toward our vision. And we do these things through a variety of partnerships with local and national nonprofits, like many of you on this call today, partnering with government agencies, national service members, and volunteers. So some of our programs include AmeriCorps State. We currently have 18 AmeriCorps programs, youth civic engagement opportunities with a focus on service learning, and our Award of Excellence for Schools, and that recognizes volunteerism and service learning in the schools. Annually, we host the Tennessee Conference on Volunteerism and Service Learning and the Governor's Volunteer Stars Awards, which honors individual volunteers, nonprofits, and businesses across the state. So you can learn more about our programs in addition to Tennessee Serves Network on our website. Okay, so the Tennessee Serves Network is a statewide collaboration of volunteer centers dedicated to bringing people and community together through an online volunteer portal. So it is what we're calling the premier statewide online tool dedicated to do this. There are a number of volunteer online tools out there. You may have heard of Volunteer Match or even Idealist, but the Tennessee Serves Network and its portal is dedicated to Tennesseans and to Tennessee nonprofits. And so what we're hoping to see is that potential volunteers can search and find volunteer needs in their local communities and community agencies can post their most current volunteer opportunities, and that would include literacy and reading opportunities, and request volunteer assistance based on skills and interests. And so this slide just gives you a little bit of background of how we started. This network was the vision also of our executive director. And in the pandemic, we have had to pivot a little bit, but we officially started this project about a year ago in partnering with volunteer centers across the state, Middle, East, and West. And we call those volunteer centers our portal partners. And they have been working behind the scenes to recruit some nonprofits to be a part of the portal. Our portal partners, they help us operate the online tool locally and regionally. And they also help us to promote agency volunteer opportunities. So, and they will be helping to recruit potential volunteer opportunities for all our agencies that are a part of the network. So, and as First Lady Lee mentioned last Thursday, we were super excited to have her office announce the public launch of the Tennessee Serves Network portal, and we have been seeing a lot of volunteers and a lot of agencies also sign on since that release, and we hope that after today that you will be an agency that signs on. But we thank the First Lady's office for helping us to make that happen, and that was in tandem in honoring her 2-year anniversary for the Tennessee Serve initiatives. So the next slide just includes our portal partners, and you may be already working with some of our portal partners, and we hope that you are. But we do work with a lot of United Way agencies that serves as volunteer centers, the Greater Nashville Regional Council, as well as Tennessee State Parks. We have a special relationship or partnership with them for volunteers specific to the state parks. But the rest of our portal partners are working with Volunteer Tennessee to engage volunteers in opportunities that include education. So as I mentioned before, we think no matter where a volunteer or agency is in the state of Tennessee, whether that is a rural area or a metro area, they will be able to use the Tennessee Serves Network portal as a volunteer opportunity database that is specifically for them. We have actually adapted this model from other state service commissions similar to Volunteer Tennessee, and we've seen that it works. So we're so excited to now to be able to implement this for our state. What's great for community agencies is that you're getting another source of recruitment at no cost. So as a former volunteer coordinator, I know, we have to make sure that we utilize our resources, and sometimes we don't have a lot of them. But with the Tennessee Serves Network portal, you're going to get premier benefits at no extra cost. So for instance, if you were signing up for a volunteer match to become a part of their membership, you would have to pay like $100 a year for premier benefits. But with our portal, we're able to provide that free of charge. And I have to admit that I believe that the layout design is great and just provides a user-friendly tone for potential volunteers and community aid. So this is why we believe and know that you should sign up for the network. As I mentioned before, it is free for community agencies to be a part of the network and to post your volunteer opportunities. We are dedicated at Volunteer Tennessee to promoting your opportunities as well as our volunteer portal partners. And so it is an additional source of recruitment. And you'll see on this slide, we actually have 2 images. One, the top image is actually our homepage for the statewide portal, and the bottom image is a Volunteer Memphis's portal. So for instance, if a potential volunteer in Memphis is looking for opportunities, you would not only show up on the statewide volunteer portal, but you will also show up on the local Volunteer Memphis portal. So that's truly awesome. So another premier benefit, and which is really great for agencies that may not have the funds to have a formal volunteer management system in place, is that you can also collect data on volunteers. You can communicate with your volunteers through our online volunteer portal system. And there's various reports that you can pull. So you can learn what opportunities are really speaking to potential volunteers. You can determine how many hours volunteers are putting in for particular opportunities, and spotlight different events as well. One of my favorite things too about the our statewide portal is that you are going to have support from Volunteer Tennessee, from myself as the lead for the Tennessee Serves Network, also from our portal partners that can aid you in providing the best reading and tutoring opportunities for your agency, presenting those. But with our vendor, Galaxy Digital, they also provide a comprehensive support on demand and live webinars so you can get to where you need to be on the volunteer portal. So we're going to just go how it works for agencies. Like I said, as you see on the screen, this is actually the portal homepage, but it's really just 3 steps that you're going to need to take to initially sign on to be a part of the network portal. So the first thing that you want to do is just go to our website, and that's www.volunteertennessee.net. And you can select our volunteer opportunities banner. It should be the first banner that you see. And so you will just click on that slide and you'll be ready for step 2. Thank you. So once you click on that banner, you will be redirected to the volunteer portal. And there's a box that you're going to be looking for. It's the Get Involved, Make a Difference box. And you will simply click on click here to register your organization. And you'll move on to step 3. And step 3 is just completing your agency profile. And so it's a short application. There are some required information, like we need to know your contact information and physical address and who your primary contact person will be. But another key to it is that we want to make sure that you include your primary calls. And so I know most of the agencies on this call today would include education. And that's going to be really important for potential volunteers, and we'll get into that section here a bit later. So that was it. That's just 3 easy steps that you would take, and you would hear from either myself or a Volunteer Tennessee portal partner about next steps to get into put your opportunities on our portal. So how the portal works for volunteers is very similar to what agencies will do. Instead of clicking here to register your organization, you will, volunteers just hit volunteer now, or they could actually hit the sign up button at the top right-hand corner of our portal. So we find that the benefits for potential volunteers is that our portal is a one-stop shop for them, that they can look at various opportunities. They can check in when they're at your volunteer site, and they can enter their hours. One unique feature to our system is also that we have a volunteer app. So you can use the Galaxy Digital app, where volunteers can use the Galaxy Digital app. And we know everybody has their phones connected to their hips. So just from their phone, a click of a button, they can enter their hours or let you know that they are in your building, or they're volunteering virtually. And so you'll may remember that I had said during the agency application phase that you would put in your cause, which would be education. I mean, the reason why you want to do that is because volunteers will be able to have the opportunity to filter out opportunities based on different things. And so one of those does include interest. And so we want to make sure that we do have those opportunities, or your opportunities, filtered the right way. They also can do virtual need. We have seen or have had some partners that have virtual opportunities. And if you have that type of opportunity, that would be available for volunteers to seek out. And of course, distance. Again, being a statewide portal, a volunteer may want to volunteer in their local region or their local county. So they will be able to see those opportunities no matter where they are in the state of Tennessee. So we hope that you are ready to get connected. I am available to answer any questions that you may have during this call or outside. My contact information is there. But again, all you have to do to get started is to go to our website and click on that volunteer opportunities banner. And we will get you connected to the Tennessee Serves Network portal. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Shannon, for walking us through how easy the portal is to use, both from the nonprofit perspective as well as the volunteer perspective. And we are just elated that this will really be the clearinghouse to connect nonprofits and volunteers to serve as a community reading tutor, no matter where they live in Tennessee. We wanted to touch on just a few next steps from today's webinar. So as Shannon had mentioned, be sure to register your nonprofit on the Tennessee Serves Network platform by the end of June. We will then be sharing digital communication pieces as well as recommendations to drive people to the Tennessee Serves Network platform, no matter where they live. And be able to sign up to be a community reading volunteer in their local community. At the same time, later in June, the Tennessee Department of Education is going to release our statewide approach to literacy tutoring as part of the Tennessee Accelerated Literacy and Learning Core, or Tennessee All-Core for short, that was part of the legislation passed during special session. And in this statewide approach, you will see that community reading volunteers are one of the options. We know that the community reading volunteers that do sign up, they may be able and they may be willing to sign up for one of the more high dosage tutoring opportunities, such as the Tennessee All-Core as an example. And so we know that the Tennessee Serves Network is going to provide a large funnel of community reading volunteers across Tennessee. And then based on the statewide approach to tutoring, we know our literacy nonprofits will be able to discuss not only immediately plugging in as a community reading volunteer, but also be able to see if the individual is interested in potentially more of a high dosage, more intense tutoring opportunity that would be offered by their school district. So please be sure to register your nonprofit for the Tennessee Serves Network platform by the end of June. And then we'll be sure to share with you all the announcement on the statewide approach to tutoring, followed up by digital communication pieces that you can share throughout your community as well as your region on securing community reading volunteers. So wanted to open up the floor for any questions that either Shannon from Volunteer Tennessee or Dr. Lisa Coons or I could answer about Reading 360 or the Tennessee Serves Network at this time. Feel free to put your question in the chat, and all three of us or one of us will be sure to answer it. Well, we definitely are available to be a resource to you all on Reading 360 as well as the Tennessee Serves Network. We're really excited about this collaboration between our two state agencies as well as the statewide approach to reading tutoring. Kim has thrown a question into the chat. So, in terms of training for your volunteers, local literacy nonprofits will be conducting that training for its volunteers. And then for any volunteer that signs up for more of the high dosage, more intense tutoring opportunities, the Tennessee Department of Education, specifically the Tennessee All-Corps, would provide that training as well as that certification as a Tennessee All-Corps member. Any other questions before we close today? We really look forward to continue collaborating with all of you across Tennessee. We know that, as Dr. Lisa Coons mentioned, this truly takes the collective approach of excuse me, our educators, our school districts, and community partners like you to provide that comprehensive, integrated support to setting up all Tennessee students for success in literacy and into the future. And my contact information will be at the bottom of my email. Please don't hesitate to reach out via email or phone if I can ever, be helpful to your organization. And secondly, stay tuned for more information that we'll share on the statewide tutoring plan and how this component fits into it, and those digital communication pieces to help you all with further capacity building on recruiting local reading volunteers. And thank you all again. We just truly cannot do this work without you all, and look forward to this being a continued conversation. Hope you all have a great rest of the day and a great rest of the week. Thank you.